Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tequila B with TruLuv Designz, and today we are going to talk about the pattern that I use for my buttonhole project. Y'all, I am so proud of myself for finishing this project. You do not realize how intense making buttonholes was for me. Just the idea alone gave me anxiety, and I have passed on doing so many projects that I wanted to do for a long time because they had one button, okay? But this pattern had 6 buttons, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So, the pattern that I chose for this project was Simplicity S9295. It is an easy to sew pattern by Gertie. This is the envelope. Yes, I felt like this was the perfect pattern because it didn't have a whole bunch of buttons, and then it also didn't require a lot of fabric. This pattern is described as a missus top, and suggested fabrics are cotton, blends, crepe, broadcloth, chambray, and gingham. The only notions that you need are interfacing and 6/5/8 of an inch buttons. Okay, so interfacing is not on the same line as notions, but if you read under each view, it does tell you that you need fusible interfacing. I made view A, which is the sleeveless option here. And I did that because I had this nice polka dot fabric that I wanted to use, and I knew I didn't have a lot of it. One was a 1-yard bundle that I bought from Walmart, and then I had some fabric left over from a previous project. That fabric was also purchased from Walmart. Now, when I put the fabric on the cutting table together, I realized that the polka dots were a little different. They are about the same size, but the spacing is different on them. So one pattern is closer together and one is a little wider. And I remember my husband giving me a tip about my oversized tee that I made. You know, he was like, well, you could have used a different fabric for that hood. And I said, yeah, you're right. But that creativity didn't come to me at the time. So with this one, I thought about what he said. So I really had to think about how I wanted this shirt to look. So what I decided was that my back would be one dotted pattern, and then the front and the collar would be the same pattern. And that's exactly how it turned out, and it turned out great. I have the wider polka dot pattern on the front, and then the interfacing piece, and then my collar is the same as the back. I said that backwards a while ago, but yes. So from the back, my collar and everything looks the same. I didn't use actual fusible interfacing. Tell you about this fabric. So this back fabric is pretty thin. The fabric that I used on the front is a lot thicker. And I don't know if you can tell, but it has a thicker back than the other one. And it felt like it is like already like pre-interfaced, if that makes sense, or if that's even a thing. But it's so thick, I did not use interfacing on it. I just used the fabric itself because it's already so thick. This pattern is rated as an easy to sew. And yes, I will say it's definitely easy to sew. But would I suggest this pattern for a beginner? Probably not. Probably an advanced beginner probably could do it, but I would give this pattern a rating of intermediate. Number 1, buttonholes and buttons, right? Number 2 would be the instructions. The instructions weren't hard to follow, but if you didn't understand how to construct the garment already, it could be pretty difficult and pretty confusing at times. I know there were a few steps where I had to read it over and over and say, okay, one sentence at a time, one phrase at a time. Let's focus on that. And then there were parts where it would tell you to baste and then turn around and stitch it. And so for me, I skipped most of the basting in most of these instructions, and I just went ahead and stitched it because I'm like, what is the point in basting if I'm not attaching it to anything else, if I'm just going to go right back around and stitch it? So I skipped that part. I left out the basting on most of these. The only time I did basting was when it came to the collar because it was necessary. And y'all, I am so glad and so proud of how my collar turned out. I have not did a collared shirt or top, and it came out great. Absolutely wonderful. Let's talk about those buttonholes. If you watched my previous video, you know I had a couple issues with those buttonholes, but I didn't let that deter me. I pressed forward and I kept going, and I'm so glad I got it done because now those projects that I was pushing off because they had buttons, I can go ahead and do those now. So I was left a comment about doing my buttons on the sewing machine, and I said, hey, baby steps. I got through this part, baby steps. So probably on my next button project, I will try the sewing machine to put on my buttons. But again, they make me nervous too. I don't know why. I mean, I already feel like you should wear goggles when you sew just because I hear stories about needles breaking and flying. And I just, I love my eyesight. I already wear contacts and glasses. So I'm going to need the goggles. But we're going to get it done. The size ranges for this pattern are sizes 6 to 14 in the envelope that I have, but the actual pattern goes all the way up to a 22. For this pattern, I did do view A, and it calls for 1 3/4 yards of fabric. I sewed the size 8, and the finished garment measurement for the width, which I took to mean also the bust, is 40.5 inches. Now for the size 6 is 39.5. But I know with certain undergarments, sometimes your clothes can fit a little different. And I have different undergarments, which I know with buttons, it would probably make this kind of tight fitting. So I went ahead and did the size 8. Now I measure about 37.5, 38 across the bust. And I probably could have done a 6, but I would have had a time getting those buttons to come together. And the 8 is like just right. And I will, of course, insert pictures so you can see how that fits. I did not make any alterations to this pattern. What I did like about the pattern, and let me say this, I almost didn't choose this pattern because when I looked at the back of the envelope, it said that it had 12 pieces. Now, mind you, I forgot that it doesn't necessarily mean that that one view has 12 pieces. There's just 12 pieces all together to help you accomplish all 3 views. Now, this view only had 4 pieces. You have your front, your back, your collar, and then your armhole facing. Yes, front, back, collar, and armhole facing. And then of course there's your button guide, but I don't count that as a pattern piece because you're just using that to mark your to mark where you're going to put your buttons. You're not necessarily sewing that onto the pattern. So 4 pieces for this view. And then not only that, when I was ready to mark my buttons, I wanted to make sure that I was doing it correctly. So I went back to YouTube University and I was searching for marking buttonholes. Now I really didn't find what I was looking for, so I had to come up with my own way of doing that. But once I finished marking those buttonholes, I realized that I marked them incorrectly. For this pattern, my buttonholes should have been going horizontally, but I did them vertically. And I didn't realize it until I went all the way up and I got to the last button. So the last buttonhole here is horizontal and all of the other ones are vertical. And I wasn't even mad about that because I do know that sometimes I find garments where all of the buttonholes are going one way and then the one at the very top is going another way. So this actually was okay. This also had waist darts, which I had never done before, but they came out great. Also, bust darts, which I've never done before, and they also came out great. So all together, I really enjoyed this pattern. It made me feel very proud and very accomplished. And I'm not even gonna lie, I want to make another one of these. I do. I want to make another one. The other thing that I did like about this pattern is that the interfacing piece is attached to your front pattern piece. So it makes it very easy to turn this in and have it fold over so that it's already interfaced into your garment. And it just came out really, really nice. I was very impressed with this pattern. I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't say it enough. I really like this pattern. This pattern is just great. It's gorgeous. It feels good. It fits well. It's just nice. It's very, very nice. Like I said, I'm proud of this color. I would make this pattern again. I know you all were, and it was so glad to know that all of you were rooting for me and was just as proud of me as I was of me. It really brought me great joy and a sense of accomplishment and a sense of community and family. I was very excited. I was very excited, and I was excited that everyone else was really excited and waiting for me to make this buttonhole project. And I'm glad I didn't disappoint. So thank you for sticking with me, for rooting for me, for encouraging me to continue on this sewing journey and try my hand at new skills. This was a very proud moment for me. I hope you've enjoyed this content, and I hope you will continue to follow along on this journey with me. Hopefully you have decided to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below because I love to chat with you guys. It lets me know that you are enjoying the content and that I am bringing you value. Enjoy the pictures, and until next time, see it, make it, slay it. Bye.